last month I was able to talk on the link between 6 or 12 sense bases and phassa or contact. Now phassa arises when 3 conditions meet together. So in order for phassa or contact to arise, there must be 3 conditions. 1, sense base. 2, object base. And 3, mind base, which is consciousness. Now, let's talk about seeing. So, when the visible object comes into avenue of the eye or eye base, then seeing consciousness arises. So seeing consciousness means just the pure awareness of the object. So when these 3 come together, another mental factor arises, and that mental factor is called phassa. The literal meaning of phassa is touching. So although it is a mental factor, when it meets the object, it is as though it touches the object. So it is called touch, but it is translated as contact or sometimes impact. So phassa arises when these 3 conditions come together. So phassa is a separate, a distinct mental state. So phassa is not just the coming together of the 3, but something that arises out of the coming together of the 3. Now it is important to understand the difference between consciousness and phassa or contact. So consciousness is the mere awareness of the object, but phassa is, as I said before, is a vivid experience of the object, or the mind, the mind meeting the object or touching the object. So when we concentrate on some object and we see that in our mind, we see that object clearly as though the mind hits the object or touches the object, and that we should understand as contact or phassa. So phassa and consciousness are 2 different mental properties. And phassa is of 6 kinds in accordance with the sense doors through which it arises. Now in Buddhism there are not 5 senses but 6 senses, and the 6th sense is the mind. So when phassa arises through the eye base or through the eye door, then it is called eye contact. That means contact which arises through the eye coming into contact with the object. So when it arises through the ear door, so when you hear something and you experience the sound object clearly, then that phassa is called ear contact. So when you smell something and you know the object clearly, then it is called nose contact. And then when you taste something, that is called what? Tongue contact. And when you touch something with your body, that is called body context. And when you think of something in your mind and you see that, you experience that object in your mind, it is called mind contact. So there are 6 kinds of contact. Sometimes the contact is not so strong, and at other times it is strong. So depending upon whether it is strong or not, feeling that follows or that arises through phassa is weak or strong. So phassa can be very strong, and let's say because it is it arises through contact with the base, the sense base and the object. So sometimes the object is strong. Object is that which you like very much or which you hate very much. And so when the object is strong, then the phassa which arises through contact with the mind also becomes strong. And when the phassa is strong, then strong vedana will follow. Although for those who do not practice meditation, it is very difficult to see phassa clearly. It is not so difficult for meditators, especially meditators who practice mindfulness meditation, to see or to experience phassa clearly. So as I said before, when you experience some object clearly or vividly, that means it is phassa, because consciousness is just a mere awareness of the object, and so there is no vivid experience of the object with consciousness alone. So it is with the help of this contact of phassa that we come to experience objects clearly. And what arises when there is phassa? Feeling or vedana arises. And when feeling or vedana arises, it arises simultaneously with contact, phassa. Now, a vivid example would be, say, when you step on a thorn, the thorn gets into your flesh. So when the thorn gets into your flesh, you have pain there. The pain arises as soon as the thorn gets into your flesh, not before or not after the thorn gets into your flesh. At the same time, the contact with the thorn and the feeling arise at the same time. So in the same way, when you experience some object clearly, then the vedana also arises at that moment. Now, vedana is translated as feeling, and I don't know whether this is an adequate translation, because vedana means the experience of the object, or say enjoyment or suffering of the object. So when the object is a desirable object, there is enjoyment. And when the object is undesirable, a bad object, then there is suffering. So that enjoyment or suffering is what we call vedana. So it may not be just feeling. Actually, it is experiencing. Thorough experience of the object. If we call phassa the vivid experience, then we should call vedana a thorough experience of the object. And Vedana, and although the other mental states also experience the object, it is Vedana which thoroughly experiences it. So that is why Vedana only is called, say, Vedana, or feeling, or whatever English we may use it. So there is an analogy to understand this. The analogy of the royal cook and the king. So the royal cook prepares delicious food for many dishes for the king. And when he brings all these dishes to the king and put on the table, then he has to taste all of them first to make sure that there are no harmful things like poison in the food. So he tastes every dish, just a little bit of every dish. But it is the king who really enjoys the food, who really enjoys the taste of the food. And so we could say that the cook does not enjoy the food at all because it's so small, so little. But the king, as a boss, he enjoys the food to the full. So in the same way, Vedana enjoys or suffers the object fully, although other mental states also enjoy or suffer a little. So that is why it alone is called Vedana. Corresponding to the 6 kinds of contacts, there are 6 kinds of feeling or Vedana. Now I will use the word feeling in my talk, and please understand it to mean the enjoyment or suffering of the object, not in an ordinary sense. So there are 6 kinds of feelings corresponding to the 6 kinds of contact. So when you see something, let's say you see a desirable object, a beautiful flower or something. Now there is the seeing consciousness, and along with seeing consciousness there arises contact, and along with contact there arises feeling. Now ordinarily speaking, when you see a desirable object or a beautiful object, then the feeling would be what? Pleasant or unpleasant? Or neutral? Pleasant, right? So when you see something good, something beautiful, something you like, the feeling is pleasant. And when you see something ugly, something you don't like, that is unpleasant. And when you see something that you neither like nor dislike, just so ordinary object, then there is the neutral feeling. So when you see something, depending upon the quality of the object, there is pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling or neutral feeling. This feeling, which is the thorough experience of the object, arises because there is the vivid experience of the object, which is contact. If that contact is weak, then there may not be thorough experience of the object. So when you are sleepy, you may not hear a noise, although there is a noise, but you may not hear it because the contact is so weak. Although you hear it, you don't know you hear it. So when the contact is strong, then feeling is also strong, and when the contact is weak, feeling is also weak. That arises through eye contact is called feeling born of eye contact. I said that when you see something, there can be pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling or neutral feeling. But if you know Abhidhamma, you may want to ask me one day, seeing consciousness and the other three types of consciousness, say seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, smelling consciousness, tasting consciousness, they are accompanied by neutral feeling only, according to Abhidhamma. They are not accompanied by pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling. Now, why are we saying here that when you see something there can be three kinds of feelings? Now, strictly according to Abhidhamma, it is true that at the moment of seeing, hearing, smelling and tasting, there is the neutral feeling. But nobody except the Buddha can see each moment of consciousness clearly. The most the other beings can see is maybe one thought process. One thought process as one moment, or maybe even 2, 3, 4 thought process as one moment. Because as you know, mind works very, very fast. And say we are not strong enough, our understanding is not keen enough to detect each and every moment of the consciousness. So, when we take, say, one thought process or 2, 3 thought process as one unit, then you know that in the thought process there is what is called investigating consciousness, and then after the jhavanas there is a registering consciousness. So with the investigating consciousness and registering consciousness, there can be pleasant feeling. And with the jhavanas, there can be both pleasant and unpleasant feeling. So taking, say, at least one thought process or say 2, 3 processes as one unit, then we can say that at the moment of seeing, there can be pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling. The other explanation given in the commentary on Visuddhimagga is that the result of akusala is always painful, always bad. And this neutral feeling that arises with the seeing consciousness is the result of akusala in the past. So, since it is the result of akusala, it has the flavor of unpleasantness. So it is not like the neutral feeling of other types. So although it is neutral feeling, strictly according to Abhidhamma, it has the flavor of dukkha. It has a flavor of unpleasantness. Similarly, the result of kusala is always pleasant, always good. So when you see something beautiful, and with the seeing consciousness, again, neutral feeling arises. But that neutral feeling, since it is the result of kusala in the past, it has the flavor of pleasantness. So taking that, we can say that although it is neutral feeling strictly according to Abhidhamma, we can say it is pleasant or it is unpleasant. So for our general understanding, we can just take that at the moment of seeing, there can be pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling or neutral feeling. You can see these feelings clearly when you pay attention. So when you practice meditation, you pay attention to what's at the present moment, and when there is such feelings, pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling or neutral feeling, you will see them. Now, among these three, neutral feeling is very difficult to perceive. Sometimes you may not know that it is neutral feeling, because the neutral feeling has a nature of calmness, and so it is not easy to see as the pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling. Sometimes we have to understand the neutral feeling by say, looking at the feeling that precedes it and the feeling that follows it. We don't clearly see the neutral feeling in the middle, but we see the, let's say, unpleasant feeling preceding it, and then later we see the pleasant feeling following it. So when we see these two feelings, then we can infer that between these two feelings there must be also a feeling, and that must be the neutral feeling. So neutral feeling is actually difficult to see, and sometimes meditators that they have lost the object, or they don't know what there is at that moment, or something like that. And that is actually the neutral feeling. So the neutral feeling is difficult to see. But the other two are very, very, very prominent, and so they are not difficult to see. So when you have a pleasant feeling, you know that there is pleasant feeling, and when there is unpleasant feeling, you know there is unpleasant feeling. But neutral feeling, you have to infer from the two feelings preceding and following it. When you hear something pleasing to you, say a good music or your favorite music, now you enjoy it. That means you have a pleasant feeling with regard to that sound, that music. And when you hear something which you don't like, or a very loud noise like the thunder or the other unpleasant sounds, then you suffer. So you have unpleasant feeling at that moment. And you know that you are suffering when that kind of sound, you are hearing that kind of sound. So through the contact of the ear and the sound, there arises the feeling, there arises the full, thorough experience of the object. Now when the contact is strong, then you have strong feeling. Sometimes you like that music so much that you want to hear it again and again and again. And sometimes you are afraid that it might come to an end. Although it is not so, I had a friend who said he was reading a novel about this thing, and then he said, "Oh, the novel is very short." It comes to an end very short. He wants to read more and more and more. That is because the contact is strong, and so he has strong, pleasant feeling about it, and not only feeling but say a craving. So in the same way, if the sound is so offensive to you, then you have this strong, unpleasant feeling, and then it will lead you to anger. So when the contact is strong, then feeling also is strong, and when it is not strong, feeling is not strong. If the sound you hear is neither pleasant nor unpleasant, just ordinary sound, then you will have the neutral feeling with regard to that sound. And that kind of feeling is called feeling born of ear contact. When you smell something, there is contact with smell, and then there is full experience of that smell. So if that smell is a good smell, the smell of a perfume, you like it and you enjoy it, and so you have a pleasant feeling at that time. But if the smell is a foul smell, the smell of a corpse decomposing, or the smell of food that has gone bad, you close your nose. So at that time you have suffering, you have unpleasant feeling. If the smell is so bad, the smell of a gas, and you may even die of that smell. So there is a lot of suffering. That means there's a lot of unpleasant experience at that time. So that is unpleasant feeling. If the smell is just so, neither good nor bad, then there will be the neutral feeling. That feeling arises because there is contact with the object. So that is why it is said that feeling is conditioned by contact, although they arise at the same time. One is the conditioning and the other is the conditioned Dhamma. Now about the taste. When you eat something which is agreeable to you, a good food, the food you like and you enjoy, and so there is the pleasant feeling. But if the food is not what you like, there is suffering, so there is unpleasant feeling. Now, I was sick last month, and one of you yogis sent me a medicine, and it has to be boiled. And so when the woman brought the medicine to me, after boiling it, she said, "It's bitter." She was warning me, and I took it, and it was bitter. So at the time, I was suffering actually, right? Although it is good for my health, for my sickness, but while I am drinking it down, there is the taste of bitterness on my tongue, and so at that time there is an unpleasant feeling. Sometimes medicine can be very, very bitter. You don't have such medicines in this part of the world, but in our countries there are medicines that are very bitter, and the bitterness will stay on your tongue or in your mouth for a long time. So you know vividly the unpleasant feeling at that time. So that is because the pasta, the contact is strong. It is strong taste, and so when I get the strong taste, which is bitter, then I know it is bitter, and I have a little of suffering. So this, and if the taste is neither good nor bad, then there is the neutral feeling. So this feeling, pleasant or unpleasant or neutral feeling, arises because there is contact. There is contact which arises again through the coming together of the three bases: tongue base, taste base, and mind base. Not eat chili, and chili happens to get into your mouth, you know how much suffering there is. So you experience the taste of chili with strong feeling, unpleasant feeling. Okay, now touch. If your body touches something which is smooth, like a soft cloth or a silk or velvet, then you have a good feeling. So you have a pleasant feeling, you enjoy it. But if you happen to hit yourself against something, some rock, or if you happen to step on some sharp rock, then you have the unpleasant feeling. You have the pain there, and so there is unpleasant feeling. But sometimes the object is neither smooth nor rough, and so average ordinary object. So in that case, there is a neutral feeling, and this feeling arises because there is contact, and contact arises because there is the coming together of the three conditions. Now, phassa and vedana through mind, through mind is a little difficult to understand. So first, we will see what is easy to understand. Now, for example, you read a fiction. So when you read a fiction, and the description in the book makes you think of the happenings as real. Say a description of a city, and you see the city in your mind. Description of people, and you see people in your mind. And if there is something funny, you will laugh even though you are alone. Or if there is something that is the object of anger, then you will get angry, and so on. And so these feelings arise because the contact, mind contact here is strong. And when you like the fiction again, you will want to read it again and again. Now, I think you all know Sherlock Holmes. So the writer of those stories got tired of writing about Sherlock Holmes, and so in one story he kills him. He let him die, and he thought that it was the end of the writing of Sherlock Holmes. But when that story came out, after that story came out, he got a lot of letters from his readers to continue writing about Sherlock Holmes and not to kill him, because they enjoyed reading these stories so much. Now how great the effect of these stories are on the people. How great is the contact, and how great is the feeling. So the author had to revive Sherlock Holmes by some means and write stories about him again. So it could be very strong, the imagination also. Now let's go to something more difficult to understand. Now, the mind contact and feeling that arises through mind contact is not easy to understand. In order for the mind contact to arise, there must be three conditions, right? And what are these three conditions?
Mind-based.
Mind-based.
Mental object-based.
Yes. Let's call Dhamma object. Dhamma object-based.
And consciousness-based.
Consciousness is also mind-based, right?
Right.
So there is mind, there is object, and there is another mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, this mind is actually what is called Bawanga Mind. Life continuum, Bawanga Mind. And the object is also difficult to understand. Dhamma object means not objects of Dhamma. Dhamma objects here means the sensitivities, the eye sensitivity, ear sensitivity, and so on, which cannot be seen with the eyes, but which can only be known through mind. So these sensitivities, and then masculinity, femininity, and among the four great elements, the water element. So water element cannot be seen and cannot be touched, actually. It can be understood only through mind. And also what is called life principle. And these are called Dhamma objects. So when you think of some of these objects, then there is the contact of the mind with that object, and then the other mind base arises. So that the first mind base is what is called Bawanga Mind. Now, Bawanga means a type of consciousness, and this Bawanga is the result of the past karma. So, as a result of past karma, it arises, let's say, in this life, and it arises all through the life when there is no prominent object. So when there is no prominent object for it, then this Bawanga mind arises again and again and again. And when there is some prominent object, then it stops, and then active consciousness, we call active consciousness, the thought processes arise. And then after that, it goes back to Bawanga again. And so that Bawanga mind is something like a background mind, almost always there. So when there is, when the object strikes against the other mind, then this Bawanga becomes shaken. So after shaking, it stops, right? So when it stops, there arises the active mind, the mind turning towards the object, or mind, it is called adverting. So that means something like what it is. So that mind arises, and then jhana and other types of consciousness arise. So the Bawanga mind is said to be the source of the other active mind. Because if there is no Bawanga mind, the other active mind cannot arise. And that Bawanga mind must be strong enough to cause the other mind to arise. Sometimes the Bawanga mind is not so strong, so that the other mind cannot arise. As when you are sleepy, again, say you may not hear what other people say, or you may not know the object clearly, and that means no active mind arises because the Bawanga is not strong enough to cause the mind, the active mind to arise. So, in this mind context, the Bawanga is one mind base, and the object is the eye sensitivity and so on, and then there is the conscious mind. When these three come together, there is what we call contact or phassa, and along with phassa, there is the pleasant or unpleasant or neutral feeling. Suppose you have a very good eyesight, so you don't have to wear glasses, as I do. Now, thinking of your eyes, you will have a pleasant feeling. You are glad about your eyesight. So when you are glad about your eyesight, then you have a pleasant feeling. So your pleasant feeling arises out of contact with the eye sensitivity in your eye. So when you say, I have good eyes, or my eyes are good, that means your mind is taking the eye sensitivity as an object. And that eye sensitivity is Dhamma object. So you think of your good eyes and you have pleasant feeling. We always have to wear glasses. So without glasses, we may not be able to see clearly. So about our eyes, we are not glad. Sometimes we may be sad about the condition of our eyes, and so taking the eye sensitivity as an object, we have unpleasant feeling. Or your eyes are just alright and you don't have a pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling, then you have the neutral feeling. So you take the eye sensitivity as object, and then you have pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling or neutral feeling, depending upon the condition of the eye sensitivity. So that feeling which arises is called, say, feeling born of mind contact. So if you have good hearing, if you have good ears, and you are happy, and if you have bad ears, if your hearing is impaired, then you are unhappy, and so there is unpleasant feeling. And if your hearing or ears are not too good, not too bad, then you have the neutral feeling. So that feeling arises out of contact with arises out of mind contact. When I was sick this time, for about 3 days, I almost lost sense of smell. I noticed when I took out some incense sticks to offer to the Buddha, and normally the incense, the smell of the incense came to my nose strongly. But that day I didn't get any smell. So I thought, the scent has weared away or something like that. And then I offered it to the Buddha, lighting them. And still I didn't get any scent. So I thought I have lost the sense of smell. So I tried some other smell like perfume, and then and then what do you call? But I got a very faint smell of perfume at the time. So I was sad about that. So there was unpleasant feeling in me, taking my sensitivity, nose sensitivity as an object. But after about 3 days, it came back, and then I was happy. So I had a pleasant feeling. But now I have neither pleasant or unpleasant feeling about my nose, so there is neutral feeling now. So this feeling arose in me when I take my nose sensitivity as the object. And depending on the condition of the sensitivity in my nose, I was unhappy, I was happy, and now I am neutral. I think I will not elaborate on other senses, as you can understand, right? The sense of touch and also thinking in the mind. So, with regard to feeling born of mind contact, we have to understand that there is the mind which is the source of the active mind. So there is the Bawanga mind, and then Dhamma objects, and then this active mind. I prefer to call Dhamma objects because there is no English word to represent the meaning represented by the word Dhamma Ramana in Pali. So the word Dhamma is very difficult to translate, and here it is more difficult. So I just call it Dhamma objects. So taking Dhamma objects as objects and getting up from the Bawanga mind, the active consciousness arises. And along with it there is contact, and there is feeling or Vedana. And so that Vedana is that which is born of mind contact. Now, how many kinds of feelings have I told you? 3 with regard to, right, 3 with regard to eye door, another 3 with regard to ear door, and so on. So 18 kinds of feelings, 18 kinds of Vedana that arise through contact. Although we say through contact, it arises at the same time. Now, the relationship between contact and feeling. There are 2 kinds of relationship mentioned in Visuddhimagga. The one is contact and feeling arise at the same time, at the same moment, and they support each other. They are related to each other. So that is reciprocal relationship. That happens when they arise simultaneously with one kind of consciousness. And Visuddhimagga explains another kind of relationship, which is called decisive support. Let us say just another kind of relationship, because you have to understand 24 modes of relationship in Vipassana to understand this. So that is the contact arising with one thought moment, conditioning feeling that arises with another thought moment. Now, with the, say, eye consciousness, there is one feeling, right? So, with feeling there is also contact. So that contact and the relationship of contact and feeling there is mutual, and they arise at the same time. But the contact with, a relationship between contact with eye consciousness and the succeeding consciousness, the accepting consciousness, is through decisive support. That means it conditions the Vedana to arise, but they don't arise together. So they belong to different moments. So the relationship can be at the same moment or at different moments. So there are 2 kinds. Now let me repeat this. When we say one thing is the conditions by another, we mean not that one is, not necessarily that one is produced by another. And we don't mean that they must belong to different moments or different time only. So the conditioning factor and the conditions factor may arise simultaneously and support each other or related to each other. Or they may belong to different moments or different times, and they are related as conditioning and conditions, or sometimes real cause and the real result. So the relationship between these links, the relationship between these factors has to be understood with reference to what is taught in the last book of Abhidhamma-patthana. Only when you understand with reference to the patthana conditions that you understand the dependent origination fully. Otherwise, your understanding is a little deficient. Now we have gone through 5 factors in the dependent origination: Vijnana, Namarupa, Salayatana, Phassa, and Vedana. Now Vijnana consciousness is the resultant consciousness, right? And also Namarupa, Salayatana, Phassa, and Vedana are also resultant. So these are the 5 results in this life, taking Sankhara and Avijja to belong to the past life. So these 5, Vijnana, Namarupa, Salayatana, Phassa and Vedana are called 5 results in the present. And they are also called Vipaka Vata, round of results. And the Vipaka round is conditioned by or is caused by the karma round, which is sankhara. And sankhara is conditioned by what? Avidya, right? So avidya is called kilesa vata, defilement round. So there is the kilesa vata, and it produces or it conditions the karma vata, which is sankhara. And this karma vata produces the vipaka vata, which are the 5. And depending on these 5 vipaka vata, again kilesa vata arises. And this kilesa vata conditions karma vata. And this karma vata creates vipaka vata. And then kilesa vata, and so it goes on and on and on in a circle. That is why it is called vata in Pali. So vata means round, or going round and round and round, or rolling. So these are the 3 vatas. There is one chart explaining that. With regard to these 5 factors, actually also with avidya and sankhara, there is no way to interrupt them. Once there is a vijnana, there will always be namarupa, salayatana, and so on. Even the Buddha cannot stop this process. Once there is vijnana, there will always be namarupa and so on. So there is no way to interfere with this process, no way to stop or to break this process until feeling vedana. So as it is a roundabout way, it's going round and round and round, and for those who cannot get rid of avidya, there will be no hope of getting out of this going round and round and round and suffering again and again and again. But there is hope, because Buddha said that there is one weak spot in this wheel of dependent origination where you can break it. And so we'll learn about it tomorrow.
Sadhu,